The other thing that they called these druids. You ready for this, Josiah?
There we go.
Because this is going to click for you. I think it should click for you. The Mighty Men of Oak.
The Nephilim?
The freaking Nephilim.
I can't get away. I tried so hard.
Welcome to the Fictitious Dark Podcast, where we explore the lines between truth and the fictitious. And today is our special Halloween episode. I am here with my co-host, as always, Rick and Josiah, or who are they today? Rick, what are you dressed up as?
As a T-Rex.
Whoa.
Bark.
No, sometimes simplicity is the most effective. I am dressed as the other father from Coraline.
Hey,
The
there you
classic
go.
book by Neil Gaiman and directed by created by Studio Laika, the film version at least.
There we go. I guess I'm dressed up as Daddy.
Warlock.
made a Daddy Warlock on the black, all blacked out. That just happens to be what I'm wearing. I mean, I think Daddy's fitting considering some of our latest comments.
Right.
So
We got your first fangirl,
yeah,
presumably.
I am now legally obligated to father children with women on the internet, according to the YouTube comment section.
Yes.
And this is okay. But
This is what you signed up for.
exactly.
You've been training for
Yeah.
this.
Mm-hmm.
You've been preparing for this.
Yes. Especially if the women are Effie Cobb from Hellboy the Crooked Man.
That's right.
Sell
I
my
forgot.
soul.
It all comes back to Effie Cobb.
All
It
comes
always
back
does.
to Hellboy.
The Siren episode is Effie Cobb.
Probably.
The Starbucks logo, that's Effie Cobb.
It's definitely the same idea, that's for sure. But so with this special Halloween episode, the particular subject of Halloween, we just wanted to discuss Halloween itself, the origins. Where did this come from? What's the deal? Why do some Christians hate it, not celebrate it, say it is of the devil? And why, if that's the case, why do some Christians actually entertain it and celebrate it? Kind of interesting. But there's a whole lot when it comes down to this, considering it has a lot of pagan origins, which you can see why Christians feel sour about that, because pagans. But who wants to start off with some findings? Any first thoughts before we really delve deep into this?
Yeah, I'll go off what you said real quick, just kind of establish some more groundwork before I let Rick kind of go into his stuff. I think something that is I've been studying recently is this idea of syncretic religion, syncretic faiths. And it's this idea that, and I think we all kind of know this, but a lot of people try to pretend that it's not the case, is that pretty much every religion, every faith, every belief system is usually a combination of other faiths, or at least gets influenced by other beliefs and other traditions and rituals throughout time. It's just the case it's always been, going back to the dawn of things. And it's the same thing with storytelling. We take elements from all these different stories. We're all actors and filmmakers and creatives, and we know that, we do get inspired by stuff and we try to incorporate it and put our own spin on it. So this idea of syncretism, and so this whole thing about Halloween being a pagan holiday, and a lot of the Christian dates that are held sacred incorporated the dates and certain things from some of these other belief systems. And so, what was interesting to me is because I grew up in a family where we did Halloween, but my dad was always like, yeah, Halloween is kind of one of those more secular holidays, which is interesting to me because as far as I'm concerned, I feel like Christmas and St. Patty's Day and all these other holidays are also completely stripped of their meaning and made in a way to produce money and or drink. So it's interesting to me that Halloween is arguably, one of the most sacred Christian days of celebration. Because if you look, I'm going to pull these up just because I need to pronounce them correctly. But something that I was not aware of, because my family did not really celebrate Halloween with the same vigor as some others, but All Hallowtide is the Western Christian season that combines All Saints Eve, which is Halloween, All Saints Day, which is All Hallows, and All Souls Day. And the interesting thing about that is that each day is factoring in something different. One day is to, you're praying for the saints who have passed on. The next day is the departed. The line between the worlds is thinner, which is definitely coming from those other pagan days. And then the third day is you celebrate all souls and everyone. You're basically praying for everyone who is still alive. And it just is interesting to me that Halloween, what we have now, I think you could almost say Halloween is the most secularized Christian holiday that there is.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, it's interesting with you pointed out the like All Souls Day or whatever.
November 2nd.
So that one, that immediately made me think of Day of the Dead, Mexican and Spanish culture with that, which I'm sure, and I hope that Rick has some insight on that for us. Just considering his culture and background, and I'm being racist towards him right now. I know that when it comes to Day of the Dead, it's more than just the one day, right? Like it goes on a couple days. Like it kind of goes into like November 2nd, right?
Yeah, it's Halloween, November 1st and November 2nd.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a connection there.
Yeah, and there's like from what I read, there's a bunch of like ideas that the traditions from Europe was brought over when with Hernan Cortez and a lot of the different European nations that conquered them over the years. But there's also people that said that no, this is something that's been going on since the Aztecs. This is something that's a native thing of where they celebrated the goddess of death by putting out offerings and celebrating the souls of the ones departed. But nonetheless, either way, it's interesting how both times happen or both things are happening at the same time with Samhain or was it Samhain? I think it's the
Samhain,
Irish. Yeah. And Halloween for the Americans, and then of course Day of the Dead. All of it happens at the same time, and all of it has, well, besides America, we'll just go with the Western European and the Mexican for now to make it easier. They celebrate harvest too, the beginning of the new year. Also, it's the end of the the warm weather and coming into the darkness, and I think that's where like the whole idea of all the spirits comes from, is because of they were coming into the dark days of the year, which is wintertime in the northern hemisphere. And I think that this is interesting how these two cultures that were not connected for probably thousands of years yet had something similar started, and both were kind of native cultures with the Aztecs and the Celts. So it makes you think of everything is always somehow connected, no matter how far away they are, and it's really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. And it makes you think. We all have these different ideas about the dead and how to celebrate life, but yet two different cultures that are way different from each other both agreed that, this time period was the time that the veil was thinnest and the dead, would be able to return on those times.
Well, it makes sense, especially with with Samhain. There's other festivals to celebrate each season.
Mhm.
And as you enter the season of death, winter, the cycle that goes from winter is death, and then you have the rebirth in spring, and then summer is the height of life, and then fall it starts to slow, it starts to cool, and then winter is when things have to hibernate or die or transform. And so these cultures, obviously, since we all kind of come from these roots of having to farm and having to gather these resources to survive, and us paying more attention to our natural environments, the seasons, we would hold just the very changing of the times as sacred. And like you're saying, if we are entering the season of death, like the winter, the whole planet, everything around you, like the environment, you're going to be more in tune with the idea that, perhaps, this is when death is at its most present in our world, and so these spirits can maybe pop over.
Yeah. No, yeah. Because like the time of harvest is a significant thing in every single culture. Me growing up, as you can guess, I did not celebrate Halloween at all. I can't necessarily say that I do celebrate Halloween to this day, but I'm so into horror stuff that I feel like I'd be a hypocrite if I were to talk down on it. So
you just arbitrarily hate the Halloween series but love every other series?
I mean, if we're being honest about like the different horror franchise, like slasher franchises, the Halloween franchise,
it's we don't have to get into a digression here, but I'd say that the original Halloween is I think
that one's
all
great.
The classic slashers franchises, it is the best of them.
And Halloween Season of the Witch, which is like the most like Halloween, like that's the day movie.
Yeah.
I would say that's arguably the best one of the whole franchise. Obviously, there's like a warm spot for Michael Myers, but like just as far as a film and script and story goes, Season of the Witch is popping.
I think Season of the Witch is actually, to our point, is the most culturally Halloween film possibly that I've seen. Really, because it goes into like they take pieces of Stonehenge, but the film is trying to like draw an association between the dark depths of the past, of the child sacrifice being revived. And I don't know, just Season of the Witch, just something about it. It's kind of it has crazy stuff, like it has androids and masks that melt kids' face. Like it's such a wacky time, but I agree, as Season of the Witch feels like it's actually trying to get to that cultural center of Halloween, whereas Halloween 1978 is more, this is the secular aesthetic of Halloween in this suburban town, and here's the story. But Season of the Witch is all about the very essence of Halloween. Yeah,
exactly. It is a great, dare I say, cauldron of like all the little bits of everything about Halloween. So yeah, but not to talk about that movie too much. We'll have to make a separate video on Season of the Witch. Did you guys have any particular things about Halloween, little subjects that you wanted to get into? I have a couple pieces of research myself.
Did you guys do research on apple bobbing?
I did hear a little bit about it, but I didn't do in-depth research though.
I don't know a whole lot. It's just that that was one that I never understood. It was like, it's so interesting how many traditions get passed down that we either don't recall forever, or it gets lost in our memory, or we just don't know like why they exist. And the apple bobbing actually comes, and I'll pull this up, I believe it comes from Samhain. There are historic customs And in Celtic mythology, thank you, Rick, apples are strongly associated with the other world, which I believe the Fae dwell in, and immortality. And hazelnuts are associated with divine wisdom. And apple bobbing, it's said that if you catch the apple, then you peel the apple in one long strip, you toss the peel over your shoulder, and the shape was to have your future spouse's name. Like, there's so many of these rituals that have to do with finding your future husband in the mirror or their initials and all this stuff. It's really quite fascinating. So yeah, apples are, and hazelnuts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hazelnuts had like the thing like the females would like think of of their loved ones and throw them in the fire, and whichever one was able to turn into ash without popping out, that was the person that that was supposed to be the one. But then some people thought that if it sat there and burnt away, that means that love already burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
And then there's also the fun of trick-or-treating too.
This is the big one, right? Why do we wear costumes when we trick or treat? What's the origin point? I think this is the heart of it. This is in a lot of these things, like in Samhain, and I'm gonna pull up a couple other ones. Samhain, did you guys look at Hoptune?
I do not recall that one. No.
Hoptune is another Celtic festival celebrated only on the Isle of Man in the UK. And it's the celebration of the start of Samhain, the start of winter. It is thought to be the oldest unbroken tradition in the Isle of Man. And then there's also this other Welsh holiday called Calan Gaeaf. Calan Gaeaf, I think. Calan Gaeaf, sorry.
Calan Gaeaf.
My Welsh is great. Calan Gaeaf. But a lot of these have, and even with All Hallows Tide, they have this thing of like guising, of mummery, of costuming. And the thing is that, if you wonder why, it's because all this descends from this idea that the Aosí, the Fae, fairies, spirits, they cannot identify you as easily if they cannot see your face. And the thing is that knowing someone's, in a lot of these ancient cultures, knowing somebody's name, having somebody's hair, seeing someone's face, these things give you knowledge, which gives you power over to someone, especially having someone's true name. You can like use magic to enslave them, ensnare them, but like seeing your face, like identifying you. In the Christian tradition, in some of these things I looked at, you would disguise yourself because vengeful spirits who want to hurt you would be wanting to find you. Like, it's like, this is okay, I'm holding onto this vengeance. It's like the Grudge. I have to like reach out and see if I can snag this person, but if you're disguised, they're not going to find you.
Yep. No, yeah. What's funny is that one like carries over to a lot of different cultures, because that one was a big one for like the Celtic stuff and everything. With the demons are out and about. For one, there's the disguising yourself to hide from the demons that are seeking you out specifically, and then two, that you are also trying to dress like one of them. So when they're out and about, they're released on this night of Hallows Eve, and they're looking to do, whatever they've been planning to do for a whole year. They don't really care about each other at that point. They are trying to mess with humans, normal humans. And so if you dress like a dead person, like a zombie or something, they'll just simply pass you over and go on to the next. And that's very interesting, honestly. Just with pretend to be a demon to hide amongst them is like, wow, okay.
I read that the whole demon part of trying to hide from demons was brought in from Christian religion, that they're the ones that started the whole demonization of trying to hide from demons.
I mean, yeah, they I suppose probably specified it as demons, whereas all the other cultures are like, oh, they're spirits and vengeful spirits and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely a thing for.
And that's the whole idea of like with jack-o'-lanterns, they were turnips at first, and they would carve demonic faces to, ward the spirits away.
Well,
like gargoyles.
So I saw that thing as far as warding the spirits away, but then I also ran into this one thing of that the initial intent with the turnips that they would carve the faces into was a marking of this is the sacrifice for tonight. So so this goes back to like the Celts and the Druid stuff. The Druids, I don't know, do you guys know much about the Druids or anything?
Not as much as I want to.
Same here, honestly. But for like the Celts and Celtics and all that stuff, the Druids were kind of this ruling class over them. But they were a ruling like priest class. So they were the shaman, they were the holy men of the culture. But everyone was terrified of them. So it was not necessarily a positive thing. They merely ruled and kind of could do what they wanted through fear because of their magic. And so a lot of these Celtic cultures, they would go through and like they would literally rat on each other and like do things to each other just out of fear that the Druids would do it to all of them. So the Druids would demand a sacrifice, and so everybody would try to snitch on their neighbor to be like, it has to be their kid that gets sacrificed, because it was specifically always a child that they wanted to sacrifice. And so it was like a thing for like your little village, and then the Druids would come through and examine everybody and then place the turnips that were carved into on a particular house because they selected their child. And once you were selected by that, it was like a mob thing that like your child got sacrificed, because everybody was afraid that if they didn't do what the Druids said, that they would then wreak havoc on everybody. And usually what this meant was they were marking it for the spirits to target this house. So there was many different fashions of the sacrifice, but and many times it was simply like the spirits coming through and sacrificing it themselves, and the Druids would participate, but not necessarily every time. But I don't know if we want to go down this really deep rabbit hole of something that I found when it comes to the Druids.
Do it.
So this particular thing where I was hearing about all of this with what I just said, the other thing that they called these Druids. Are you ready for this, Josiah?
There we go.
Because this is going to click for you. I think it should click for you. The Mighty Men of Oak.
The Nephilim?
The freaking Nephilim.
I can't get away. I tried so hard.
Bruh. So
the giants, the Mighty Men of Oak. It all just like.
So a little recap for everybody, and I'm sure Rick, I don't know if you're a little confused right now. Nephilim,
men from Oak.
Yeah, so Nephilim in the Bible, Nephilim pretty much, I mean, it literally just means mighty men, right? Every time you see things of people like in the Bible talking about the Nephilim, they would either call them the Nephilim or they would call them mighty men. The mighty men just referred to the fact that they were giants, essentially.
Well,
And yeah.
It was translated as giants, but the direct translation is mighty men.
Yeah, correct. So
They could have just been super powerful, but not necessarily.
And ultimately what that came down to, as far as them being mighty, was because they also had otherworldly connections, because they were fallen angels. So there's the whole other world of the Nephilim when it comes to like interbreeding, and it just like, it seems like every time you try to get like an origin of like demonic things and cultures, it always leads back to the Nephilim, because that was like the culture that would participate in human sacrifice, in cannibalism, and like all this different stuff, because of like the differences of the Nephilim being like, they're like pretty much human, but they're not human, you know? So there was the capability of interbreeding with interbreeding with themselves that caused all these diseases. So then they were trying to breed with humans more and everything, and all sorts of back and forth with these diseases that were created through that is a whole thing. But then, because like, you know, they're not technically human, they would eat humans, and that's where the whole giants eating people kind of comes from. But then they would get into all sorts of stuff like witchcraft and blood sacrifices and blood magic, and like literally doing so much when it comes to that. And like, you can find stuff just solely based on that with the Nephilim. And then you take this other thing with this other culture that's talking about this ruling class of priests and priestesses that are everybody fears and hates, but does what they want because of their being so powerful. And they refer to them as the same thing that's referred to in the Bible. Like, I feel like what are these coincidences, you know? So...
Well, I'd say that, especially because so much of these traditions come from the UK, they come from the Celtic, they come from the Gaelic, they come from, and sometimes the Nordic. But these kind of ideas, the thing is that pretty much every culture, even the monotheistic cultures, they do have. They have a god, like they have the monotheistic god, but every belief system, even the monotheistic ones, they all believe that there are more things that exist. There's always some kind of rogue element. There's always some kind of polytheistic bent. There's the fae. There's spirits. There's demons. There's jinn. There's and a lot of the monotheistic faiths. They portray it as, it's interesting. Like, there's some people who say like, well, to go to the Bible specifically, but all the monotheistic religions pretty much, they say, oh yeah, there's no other gods, and it's like, that's not necessarily what's said. It's just that there are these other beings that you can worship. It's just that you shouldn't. So the difference between a monotheistic and a polytheistic, to me, there's no real difference other than polytheistic says you can pick and choose, and there are many different groups and different interests and different beings, whereas monotheism is like, you must stay united to one path. These are all tricks. To me, that's what I've gathered in my experience.
The thing that always kind of like, I've always felt weird, especially after like learning more stuff, with the whole like, there's no other gods, blah, 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 talking like just like a complete shutdown. Like, it's not a discussion. There's no other gods. But yet there is the Bible verse that says, thou shalt not worship any other gods before me.
Right.
That is an acknowledgement.
Right. It would just say you, because it does also say, do not worship false idols, but then it also says, do not worship any other gods. It doesn't say false gods.
Yeah, exactly.
It says other gods. And if you go to the original Hebrew, I don't want to go on a tangent, but if you go to the original Hebrew, Elohim can mean singular or plural. And so there are points when it mentions the Elohim and that is clearly saying multiple beings, and that one of them, right? So anyway, I think that's kind of my point, is that it makes sense that in some cultures the Fae, yes, they're tricksters, but they're not necessarily like evil. But then Christianity being monotheistic, any of these spirits that you may interact with on Halloween, they must be demons. They must be a threat. They must be something to avoid. Not just respect, I guess.
Yeah, no. And if you want to keep going on that tangent, I am all for it. So don't stop yourself.
The Elohim does not necessarily relate to Halloween. I guess it kind of does, but
it all connects. That's what this is all about.
But yes, this that's something that was kind of striking me as I was going through. Is the traditions are nearly identical. It's just that the overall message of what you are disguising yourself from, the perspective is switched a little bit.
It is interesting because, like, I mean, why do you think it is the harvest, this season? Why is it that all these different cultures talk about us being closer to like the other world or something like that? The veil being thinner during this time. Why do you think that is? I mean, does it have to do something with the position of the moon and our stars? I mean, freaking Cthulhu, waiting for the right position, the alignment of the stars. I mean,
100%. I'm sure the lunar and the stars, the astrology of it has something to do with it. But I genuinely think that what it comes down to, if we look at this from a purely factoring in go to the small scale of it, you have these communities. The time of harvest, you harvest what you have, and then once you hit winter, it's like that's what we got.
Everything's dead.
Everything's dead, and you have to believe and trust that it will be enough, and you will have to have prepared. And it's a time of celebration that the harvest has come, but your resources are your resources. Anything beyond that, you're gonna have to. So you are effectively like putting your faith in that you will be able to get through this time period. It's almost like a period of trial is winter. And another thing is that we know that cultures also say that at night, specifically like under the moon and at night, the witching hour. I mean, the witching hour, like that's at 3 a.m. But I believe,
yeah, it is.
This is the time when things are thinner, and so if you enter winter, the nights are longer, the days are shorter. If the sun is what gives you life, and the moon is the thing that threatens to give you hypothermia, the winter is like a constant barrage. Like everything, like the sun is literally the sun is less present. Night is more present, than you have what food you have. I think that is ultimately what it comes down to. Why death is ever closer. The Grim Reaper, he's hanging around.
Yeah. No, yeah, and like the thing that came to my mind when you were talking about it, it's like the the big thing of like you're about to go into some trial. You're going off to war. You're taking care of business. You're going into a life-threatening situation. What's the thing that is often talked about when it comes to that? Get right with your God. Make sure that you are at peace with your beliefs, and that you feel like no matter what happens next, that you are going where you want to be in the next life. So it's like a little bit of a who's your God, get right with whoever your God is, and potentially these dark deities and stuff like that. So that's just something that came to my mind while you were talking.
Not to mention, like in the wintertime too, probably a lot of people are dying because there's not a lot of protection, not a lot of food to go around. If it was a bad harvest, there's a lot of that stuff going on, and they probably around that time saw that this is where half of our community is going to die, or part of our community is going to die, or the older ones are going to die at least.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, like, I mean, it's definitely a big deal in Christianity of like you should be thankful and you should be always thanking God and everything. I'm sure from what I can tell, it's pretty much the same in every religion of being very thankful to your God. So that is definitely the time to be thankful of like this harvest and blah, blah, blah. Like it's going to get us through the winter. Thank you so much. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So I wonder if this is like, if Thanksgiving is kind of like another like offshoot of what the original, Halloween, or what is it, Samhain?
I mean, okay, so here's a thought. I mean, I didn't necessarily see anything that actually said this. This is just me going off. The idea of Halloween, Samhain, Day of the Dead, that it's multiple days.
Yes.
I know
What
Samhain
if?
is November for like the, I think it was the Irish calendar. So I wonder if it was like a whole month thing for them.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I know Thanksgiving is definitely like very much like America
Yeah.
type stuff, so don't mind me putting it out
um,
there. But like the idea of Halloween, All Hallows Eve is the start, and Thanksgiving dinner, you know, that time period that we're talking. Don't worry about me calling it Thanksgiving. That's an American thing, but that time period, then it's like it's the start, and then that is the official celebration. Because I mean, Halloween doesn't necessarily feel like a celebration, if we're being
It's like the
honest.
start.
Yeah, exactly. It's the veil is open. We're officially doing harvest, stuff, and then the big dinner and stuff like that, Thanksgiving time frame, that is the official celebration. That is like kind of also like right before winter really pops off too.
it gets really intense, right? If you gather the harvest, then yeah, you get through that month, the first month of winter. You have the big celebration, and then immediately everyone overeats. And then for maybe a little bit after that, they have smaller portions so they can ration it out. But it
Yeah.
is that.
It's kind of like almost like just like hibernation, we're just overeating, so
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
and also just timing wise also makes sense as far as going into winter, time to eat these certain crops and things that are not going to survive the winter. So by all means, be bountiful and eat as many as you want, because there's plenty that we're not going to store. We have
Right.
literally like this last week to just eat it all. So let's have a big old party and eat all the perishable things. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
going back to earlier, I noticed with Samhain and with Noptuhe, sorry, Hoptune, not Hey.
Hey.
I've noticed with the bonfire is something that has gone into neo-paganism and Wiccanism, which I'm playing this for Katie. Just so everyone knows, Wiccanism is a new religion. It couches itself as being old, but the idea of Wicca,
Oh,
like yes,
yeah.
it comes from like pagan and neo-paganism and stuff like that, but Wiccanism is like is newer than Mormonism. I think it started in the 50s.
Really?
Anyway.
Okay.
There's a lot you could go into that, but I noticed with a lot of these things, like the bonfire is kind of like trying to recreate the sun that is not going to be present very much in winter, and there'd be this ritual where you would each take stones and place them around the bonfire, and then people would like move torches around them, and the next morning they would discern from the ash on it, or it reminded me of Blair Witch actually, like if the stone was moved, that was like you're gonna die this year.
Okay.
It was but the fire would also be where you throw the hazelnuts in, and like Rick was saying, if they stay in, the two stay in, that's good fortune for your future partner. But if one pops out, oh, it's not good, not good chances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
So.
that's interesting. So then, do you have any opinion why this is like the month when it comes to spooky witchcraft stuff going on? including that mysterious spooky light in the background behind you. Oh my god!
Oh my God.
There's a person! It's a witch!
It's the witch.
So yeah, I think that's a sign that I was onto something. Witchcraft being so prevalent in the time of October, more than any other time. Thoughts, opinions? I mean, the veil is thin. They want to commune, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's more. There's different rituals and not great stuff that spikes around this time. If you notice, October is the month with the most missing cats.
Oh God! Really?
Yes, correct. Just pay attention to like your local friends and family and signs on the side of the road. Cats go missing in this month, and there's two different reasons for that. One being that like people that are superstitious and are like scared of it all fear cats and might purposefully kill them. Because it's like, get that bad juju away from me. I'm going to run that cat over or shoot that cat or whatever.
Black cats?
Particularly black cats, but it is all cats though. And then the other side of it, which I would say is probably more likely than the other, is there is a lot of witchcraft that involves the butchering of feline and trying and using their organs and different stuff. I mean, we just talked about it in the Hellboy episode with witchcraft being a big thing that was relevant in that movie, and them literally describing a ritual in that movie that involves using a cat's organs and stuff, but then also cooking the cat and then grabbing whichever cat bone you're holding when the devil shows up to collect your soul. That is your lucky cat bone, and that is the source of your magic from that point on, is that piece of the cat. So obviously that was a movie, but that wasn't just like 100% fiction. You know, that little piece of information, because that is a very sad but true part of this kind of stuff, is all the different rituals that are done with cats.
Why are cats so important to these rituals?
Well, we could go back to Egypt. They're
Exactly.
the guardians of the underworld.
Yeah.
So
maybe a cat, you know, that helps you bridge that gap.
exactly. So yeah, it's like maybe that's what it is. It's like there's the veil thins, and this creature is already like has a connection and a sense to that side. So it's like, even though it thins for all of us, it was already like thin, like they are that bridge to the gap. And something like that, perhaps. It's just like making that connection. Why is it that the Egypt has cats as the guardians to the underworld, and then it has the dogmen? Like Anubis warrior stuff, like it's kind of
Anubis, yeah, the judge weighs everything.
Yeah, so that's
Isn't
just
Anubis the god of death?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so if you are out there hurting little kitty cats, I hope that you are out there getting hurt yourself, because cats are kind of the best when it comes to our little furry friends. That's how I feel. But like, I grew up with cats. I've legit like seen them like randomly freak out about like a particular corner in the room and like looking at it like it's a predator. I've witnessed them freaking out and looking at an actual predator. Seeing them freak out to like owls in a tree staring at them, or dogs or whatnot. I've witnessed what their reaction is when they are threatened by something. And then I've witnessed that same behavior looking at a blank corner in the room. And it's like, I mean, cats are a little crazy, so you never know. But maybe they're crazy because of the thin veil. I don't know.
Maybe they're seeing something on the other side.
Yeah, so there is something about cats when it comes to all that spooky shiz. It has always been a thing as far as the whole like black cat thing. I mean, was it the movie has the Sanderson sisters?
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. Yeah, you got your black cat in that. Who is almost like used a little bit of a like a familiar. There's that whole thing with witchcraft as well, but it's more than just witchcraft when it comes to the world of familiars. Your little demon friend that takes the form of a small animal that follows you around. You could say that dips into the world of skinwalkers as well, but
well, it's interesting. Because earlier we were talking about winter, the Wendigo. I forgot to mention the Wendigo.
I was thinking about the Wendigo. I just didn't know how to weave it in.
No, yeah, but that's if we're talking about that, that's the same kind of thing. Like someone who gets desperate and they can't handle it anymore. It's so cold. The nights are so long. I have to just eat somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's
or something.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like your toes. All right.
Well, like, let's talk about something a little bit more on the happy end of Halloween. Dare I say?
Nothing's happy about it. It's all a lie.
Well, I shouldn't say Halloween. Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that one's definitely more positive. That's for sure.
Exactly. Where it differs from the original Samhain is that it instead of warding away spirits, they're welcoming spirits in.
Mm-hmm.
They set up these ofrendas or altars where they have different tiers, and they set pictures of loved ones with their favorite foods or items that they have, which they believe that the spirits, when they're coming home, are able to lock onto that, and it helps them come home to take the spirit of the food away, or spirit of the item away, because we know that spirits can't eat our physical food, but they'll eat the spirit of it. So that's why they have the big parties where us living people will eat all the different stuff that we have on the altars or ofrendas. They also go to the cemeteries and they decorate them, and they sit there all day and talk about stories about the past lives of the old ones, or the ones that have passed on. They share different it's like a community thing. They share different stories. They are hang out with their loved ones, the spirits that have left them over the years. They do a lot more positive stuff, whereas what we've learned about so far is that the Celts were trying to ward off these spirits. So it makes me think of maybe that the different ruling classes had a different opinion on death and ruled death in a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas the Mexican culture, Aztec culture, celebrated it as a positive thing, and maybe the Western European culture, the Celts, they used it as a punishment if they did something wrong.
Right. Yeah, the Day of the Dead definitely is an edification of your culture. It's an edification of your family and your roots. So that creates a very strong uh, bond,
Yeah.
and promotes that remembering of history as well. I think that's why. I don't know. Katie's actually put up some Day of the Dead stuff in our apartment. So
Oh yeah, I saw that. Your little housewarming party.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
my
think
wife
Day of the
loves
Dead is
that stuff,
cool.
too.
Honestly, I think it's a good thing to do. It promotes a good mindset about things. Because the thing
Yeah.
is that if you're always trying to ward away that which is on the other side, then you're going to be more afraid of that other side. Not that I'm saying call all the spirits into your house, but I'm saying, like, if you have good relations with your family, like if they're always with you, like having a day where you kind of spend some time really thinking, because, like, as we all know, the more you dwell on something and meditate and think on something, it manifests that energy. Your mind makes it real, really. So having that kind of positive association, I think, is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that my biggest learning resource for the Day of the Dead was the movie Coco,
Yeah.
which I think is for a lot of white people. But
It's kind of what popularized the whole Sugar Skull.
oh yeah,
See,
that's true.
mine was the 2011 film Book of Life.
I
Yeah.
do recall that one. I don't know if I ever saw. I might have seen it. I don't remember. I think I saw it. But yeah, no, that and that film really did a good job at, like, really showing the kind of the sacred relationship that you have with your ancestors and your loved ones that have passed on, and how important it is to not forget about them. And what's interesting about that is it is talking about, like, that the whole theme of that movie is you have to not forget your ancestors or they will be forgotten in the next world. And that, I think, is directly connects to, like, the whole thing of leaving out the food. Even though they don't eat the food, they'll partake of its energy. So it's like the energy that we give to their, like, their essence and their soul, that is, like, what keeps them going on. So it's like, it really just feels like this, it's a culmination of all this different energy exchange and the reverence for the sacred passing and cycle of life of energy, and how there's much more to it than just the physical body, and that there's just all these things that are connected and everything. So I that aspect of it I absolutely love, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And, the Aztecs, they also had, like, a positive outlook on death. They just thought it was, your physical being was dying and you're moving on to a new existence.
That's why they love sacrificing people so much.
It wasn't for the sake of crops or anything like that.
No.
But yeah, it just makes me think that, that the two different cultures had a different outlook on death, and whereas, like, I feel like Christian people try to, like, make a almost like what's the word I'm looking for, like a fearful aspect of, like, the next life, whether you're going to be good or be judged.
A lot of
that's
fear
what I'm
involved. Yeah.
And so you're always fearful of how you're going to be.
Right.
And where I feel like, at least Day of the Dead, celebrating Day of the Dead, no matter if you were who you were when you're there, as long as you were good to your family will always remember you in a positive aspect. And so it's just interesting how two things that are celebrated can be celebrated so differently.
Well, and something that to go back to the beginning, it definitely feels like the early church, we're trying to maintain that positive aspect. This was a time of like trying to put good energy out to the dead and to the martyrs and to the people around you. But over time, and again, like as it became more enmeshed and the melting pot and secularization, commercialization of it, Christians eventually reached a point where they were like, we don't even realize that this is one of our most holy days. It's almost like the culture beat it out of them. In a way, which happens.
I think a lot of like consumerism has killed off a lot of meanings of different holidays, and it's turned into just money.
Mammon.
Yeah,
we're worshiping Mammon.
Exactly. We had the earlier episode with St. Patrick's Day, and we saw the difference of how St. Patrick's Day was celebrated in the beginning to what happened now.
Yeah.
And so it just makes you think, in 100 years, 200 years, are any of these original practices or even original ideas, are they even going to be celebrated anymore? Or is it just going to be a monetization where it just turns into like a melting pot of ideas that, we're already seeing it happen with Halloween, and how like the original idea was to celebrate harvest, celebrate, the past ones, to celebrate all these spirits that, and now it's to celebrate getting drunk, dressing up your cat in a costume,
Time to be a slut.
Decorating your house and all these cool, expensive animatronics and decorations. It's not about, the past or anything like that anymore, or the future, in a sense.
Right.
No, yeah, for sure. And it's like it's really cool to just always, like, with each season, to look up at the trees. What's going on with them? I mean, I feel like the trees are the reason for like Halloween colors being orange, because the leaves are literally either orange or dark brown, like they're dying. It's falling off. It's the time for that to officially commence, where they're falling off. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of trees. I just think they're really cool.
Why they call it fall?
Yeah, look at that.
We all know that these pretty much everything, pretty much all these symbols, all these traditions, they have a purpose. They have meaning. The irony is that we live in a world where, each successive generation, each cultural mixing, each new idea gives us the possibility for endless meaning. But I feel like we're in a society. But I feel like we
literally live in a society.
We're in a society where people want there to be no meaning to anything.
Yeah.
It's simpler that way. I don't have to consider.
You know why?
Well,
because if there's no meaning, there's no consequence.
Right.
I don't have a consequence dressing up as Satan and running around and smashing my neighbor's pumpkins, and doing certain things to spite traditions is done out of a sense of just to satisfy a small part of rebellion. It's not really you trying to create new meanings. It's you trying to destroy old meaning. And I think we should be trying less to destroy old meaning and trying to learn what we can and find whatever meaning we can, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people don't like to live by tradition, though. They want to make their own new traditions, and
But the people who want to admit their own new traditions, and often they're not the ones who are actually creating new traditions. Like they may have, like I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
you know,
I just think that a lot of our culture nowadays is trying to erase the past
right.
and make new history.
What are you talking about? They've only literally had the line about killing the past in like every single blockbuster movie within the last 5 years.
Well, it's very, so to because you've opened the door, and like in court,
That's what
you've
we
opened
doing
the door.
here. We out here. We opening doors.
You've opened
Yeah.
in the court. This means I can cross-examine. So to go off what both you're saying, Rick, Brandon, yeah, if we look at our fiction, which ultimately carries over the symbols and the culture and the rituals of a lot of our mythology, we look at our fiction. We seem to be trying to destroy the past, to destroy the meaning, but we are using what we're doing is we're using the symbols themselves, and we're using them for nostalgia, for profit, and for the lowest possible meaning of, oh, I recognize that. I don't know what it means. I just know that that it's something.
We're trying to give these symbols new meaning, though.
Yeah, new meaning that can be antithetical to what they were, and
Exactly.
and if you can erase, and you know, this is the thing a lot of people brought up about when the cultures evolve together, can feel like a takeover or a parasitic assimilation of the holidays. And yeah, we are that's a good that really hit me, because I was conscious of this, but putting it that way, that we're trying to rewrite the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're trying to change the meaning of these symbols and rewrite what they are going to be in the future and what our future generations are going to like believe they are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
I mean, like even something like, I don't mean to be obvious, but I mean, you look at the swastika. Look at, I mean, like
Yep.
that you know, you can
Forever
it doesn't matter.
changed.
Forever changed. It doesn't matter if people are conscious of the fact that it was changed. All they can think about is the change.
Do you recall what the symbol used to mean?
The manji? Yeah, it was like fortune,
Wasn't
good
it
luck,
hope?
prosperity, hope.
Wasn't like an Indian.
Yeah.
Was it
symbol?
Indian?
It was
Isn't it like? Because isn't that symbol in a lot of Nordic stuff as well?
The Nordic cultures have their own version. They have like the bent cross, and so that can resemble swastikas.
Yeah.
But
'Cause then-
again, yeah.
Yeah, they did have the other symbols that they took from Nordic stuff, and then we really started to get into the weeds with all the Aryan stuff.
Aryan aliens, bro.
Aryan aliens, bro.
And then the thing is, like, you know, this just goes to get us back online talking about Halloween, is that the original ideas of what's Samhain, or I cannot remember right now.
Samhain.
Samhain was hijacked by the Christian culture and changed into something totally different, and it was kind of like, you know, absorbed into a new idea. What we were just talking about is changing the meaning and changing history. It was already done, you know, what, 1,000 years beforehand.
We decided to do a soft.
They moved the Christian culture. They had their, I think it was their All Hallow Day or Hallowtide, I think it was. It was originally May 13th, but they changed it to November 1st and November 31st because they observed the idea of what Samhain was.
Yeah.
So changing that idea, changing the culture.
Yeah, it really there's so many things that just makes me constantly think of I don't remember the particular saint or deity, but like way back then when, you know, the church was medieval times and whatnot, assimilating cultures and conquest and blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure it was Irish, if I recall this story. this particular people that they had taken over their territory and they were trying to reign over them, but the people refused to convert to Christianity, because they worshipped a particular deity that wasn't necessarily a mainstream one that you would recognize, even if I did remember the name, but it was just whatever deity. And the church's response was like, okay, so for political gain, we're having this struggle of like to make them Christian and everything. So then they reformulated and then reapproached the people, and they're like, so that deity, he's a saint. He's saint, whatever. They just made it up. And then the people were just like, okay, you're pressuring me to convert. You're saying that you do also believe in what I believe. It's just like a different like lens to look at it through. Okay, sure. So that's how the people accepted their new overlords and religion, was simply because they just said, that's Saint blah, 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 and you are a Christian, actually, for worshiping him. And they're okay.
Have you heard of the idea that Ragnarok, the very concept of Ragnarok in the Nordic myth, was a way for the Nordic religious leaders, the authors, essentially the fiction writers, the poets, all of them, it was their way of giving like a satisfying ending to their mythology while creating a new world at the end that then would coincide with the Christianity that they were now converting to. And so it's this idea that potentially some stuff was added in at certain points at the end of certain stories that mention Ragnarok, or in certain Nordic myths, or that the authors themselves are like, they viewed things as a cycle, and so they viewed the conversion to Christianity as, our ways are dying. This is the end of our myths, our religion, our time. It is the end of an era. It's not the world isn't physically ending, but symbolically our culture is being assimilated and converted. And so this is the ending as we see it. And there is hope. There is a fresh start, but it will be something new. And the bones of who we are will still remain in the world and what we've created, but we will not be who we were before. Our gods are dead.
That's interesting. Yeah, because that is actually very interesting, because when it comes to all the different apocalypse world scenarios in every religion, Ragnarok is the one where gods die.
All of them die,
yeah. It's like, that's not usually the case for all the different ones. So that's an interesting theory. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't it like usually like in the Christian mythology is that the God and Jesus prevail, and all of the loyal followers go up to heaven and start a new world, pretty much.
Yeah.
But in Ragnarok, the gods die.
The gods all die. Only 2 people survive, and they restart the human race. And that you could view them as Adam and Eve. So the Nordic writers, in a sense, might have found the way to immortalize their myth, like preserve it, while also saying like, we're saying that Christianity is what comes next because we're converting, So they were
saying
it's an evolution. It's not.
It's an evolution.
It's not saying that you're wrong. This is what came next.
Yes. Yeah. They were very at peace. They found peace, and they were able to let go and create a lasting myth that rings true, because we know it to be true because there are cycles. Whereas a lot of other myths, they were just destroyed and they don't have an ending to them.
Okay, you know what?
So the Bible is equal to the Nordic Bible.
You know what that just made me think of?
What?
Sorry, Mom and Dad. The Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Because it is literally adding to the Bible. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's preaching new doctrine, saying that, like, yes, that is true. And
Right.
I mean, it's literally like on the front of it, it says another testament of Jesus Christ. So that's not like, it is like an addition. It's the sequel, you know? It's saying that everything's still true in the Bible, but it's another testament. It's talking about a new documentation of a different history of a certain people.
Yeah.
So like literally like just taking like, there's your base knowledge and that is true, and now here's this on top of it. That just like instantly made me think of that.
It's literally anytime we get a sequel, anytime we get like a new company taking over, a new creative force, they come in, they're like, all that stuff that you believe in, that religion you believe in, that story you believe in is true, but we're going to add a little bit of extra something to the
it's
the thing about the Norse though is that they were like, no, there's no more stories, because now they have to tell the stories, but we are in their world now. So they were like, no sequels, no reboots, we're cutting this off.
It's like the simple idea of a sequel is that every story has to evolve, every story has to move on.
Yeah, Hollywood should have listened to the Nords.
They should have. They really should have. But I kind of bring that up. I do think it's topical because a lot of this discussion is about all these different cultures and the evolution together and the mixing and the matching, and how we get that first kind of enmeshing of Samhain. We kind of get that enmeshed into a holotide, and then that is now turned into the Mammon consumerist version, and so the culture is submerged again, and we have these traditions, and maybe they can find meaning again. But as of right now, we are in a godless world. We are in an atheistic, consumerist world. And so
a soulless sequel.
A soulless sequel is what we're living in right now, and it makes sense. And perhaps
everything is
someday,
ruled by the dollar.
Everything is ruled by the dollar, and at some point, maybe we will find our meaning again in these traditions, or we will find maybe new meanings, or we'll make new traditions. But it is interesting. Yeah, I bring up that stuff about Ragnarok because it seems like that is what a lot of cultures have had to do. They've had to adapt the story of humanity, the story of our different cultures. It's had to evolve. It's had to change as the series progresses.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh man, yeah. Because like, technically speaking, Halloween is the most, like, whether you want to say it's negative or not, is the most spiritual holiday. Like,
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, because like, I mean, there's all sorts of things when it comes to Christmas, which we'll have an episode about that when it comes time. But people want to make it about celebration of Jesus, but then there is a bunch of different pagan origins to Christmas, where it once again was the sequel, and changed, but then now it's definitely like the most consumerist holiday there is. And but then Halloween is just like through and through always spiritual, and it has, the only side of it is the whole like, we're just gonna dress up and like that's it. But you always want to, there's always the dress up as spooky demons and devils, like inclination and stuff like that, or dressing up as Effie Cobb knocking on my door in the middle of the night.
He's implanting the thought.
No, please don't do that.
The only thing I'm scared of is Effie Cobb coming to my door at night.
That would be so scary. Nobody do that to me. I would be terrified. No, don't do it.
No, please no.
Gentlemen, do we have any closing thoughts on Halloween, Samhain, All Hallow-Tide, Day of the Dead, Reformation Day for the Lutherans?
Ooh. Wait. What, Reformation Day? We haven't talked about that. What is it?
Yeah, October 31st is when Martin Luther nailed the theses to the church. And so, especially amongst Lutherans, they celebrate it for Reformation Day because it's the same day. Again, there's all these things that fall on this 3-day period of significance spiritually.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It really is like, you want to say, oh, it's the end to the month, it's the end to the chapter, and then to this whole thing. It really is like the beginning to a chapter. It's Some might say that Halloween itself and the celebration, in no matter what regard, no matter the size of it, is a doorway and a portal. And it's up to you to try and navigate where that portal takes you. So be careful out there jumping around these portals and doorways, and choose wisely. Be careful.
Yeah. All I have to say too is remember the past and learn, and respect the past and learn, because what you remember as, as something in the future is going to be changed by somebody else. And hopefully by remembering the past, like how Coco in the movie Coco, the only thing worse than death is not being remembered.
Yeah.
I can't add anything else. That was both of you said very well. Everything that I think as well. And so all I have to say to our viewers out there is, at this time on Halloween, stay spooky out there.